There is a kind of boundary that doesn't need to be spoken, a line people feel before they ever test it, and it starts with presence. You can walk into a room, and without saying a word, people already know what they can and cannot get away with. It is not about size or volume or even rank, it is about the energy you carry. Some people invite interruption, they invite intrusion, they signal with their eyes and posture that they will bend if pushed. Others, without lifting a finger, create a pressure around themselves that makes people think twice. That pressure is the unspoken boundary, and it is more powerful than any words. Think of the times you have met someone who never raised their voice yet commanded attention. They did not need to explain what they stood for, because you could sense it the moment you looked at them. That sense comes from how they hold themselves, how they use silence, how they carry a calm certainty in every movement. People feel it, because we are wired to read signals that go far deeper than language. We notice the stillness, the gaze that does not dart around nervously, the relaxed but steady posture that says, I do not need to defend my space because it already belongs to me. This is the starting point of boundaries, how you make people feel without ever opening your mouth. When you set boundaries with words, you often give people room to argue. They hear a request and they weigh whether or not to respect it. But when you set boundaries with presence, you remove the debate. No one argues with gravity. No one argues with the sun setting. They accept it because it feels undeniable. That is how your energy has to feel. Not desperate, not explained, not begged for, simply undeniable. The secret is that boundaries are not about others. They are about you. If you respect your own time, your own peace, your own standards, people feel it. If you don't, people feel that too. You cannot hide how you treat yourself. It leaks through your posture, your tone, your pauses. The person who checks their phone nervously every 5 seconds tells the world my time is not valuable. The person who pauses before answering tells the world my words are worth waiting for. The first person will be interrupted, rushed and ignored. The second will be listened to, even in silence. You train people by what you allow. The moment you explain too much, the moment you laugh off a disrespect, the moment you let someone take more than they gave, you tell them where the line is, and you tell them the line can move. But the moment you stay calm, hold still, and let the silence hang, you tell them the line is fixed. They feel it in their chest. They feel the weight of yourself. Respect. Boundaries that are spoken can be broken. Boundaries that are felt become law. And the first lesson is simple. Stop trying to convince people with words. Start convincing them with presence. Let them feel that silent line and watch how quickly they adjust. Stillness is one of the strongest signals of power you can send because it teaches people that their pressure does not move you. Most people are trained to react quickly. Someone questions them, they rush to explain. Someone pushes them, they push back. Someone insults them, they defend. But stillness is a different language altogether. When you stay calm, when you hold your ground without a flinch, you send a message deeper than words. You tell the world that you cannot be rattled, that your limits are not open to negotiation. The absence of movement becomes the presence of strength. Think about the moments when silence and stillness have made you uncomfortable. Maybe you spoke too quickly, tried to fill a gap, tried to explain yourself before anyone even asked. That is what most people do because silence feels like judgment. But when you own that silence, when you sit in it with no rush, it flips the frame. Now the other person is the one who feels exposed. They start to question themselves, not you. They feel the invisible wall you have created simply by refusing to react. In business, in relationships, in any social setting, the one who stays still first is usually the one in control. Picture a negotiation. One side makes an offer, and the other side does not immediately reply. They lean back, calm, unshaken. That pause, that stillness, creates tension. The first side starts to talk more, justify more, add more. They think they are gaining ground, but really they are giving it away. All because the other side understood the power of stillness. Stillness is not the same as passivity. Passivity is weakness. It is shrinking back, it is avoiding conflict out of fear. Stillness is active. It is the choice to hold your ground, to let the pressure hit you and bounce back without changing your stance. People confuse the two, but the difference is everything. One makes you invisible, the other makes you untouchable. The truth is, when you don't react, people learn your limits faster than if you shouted them. A person who yells, "Don't disrespect me," is already on the defensive. A person who stays calm when disrespected, who simply lets the moment hang heavy, shows the room that disrespect has no effect. That lack of reaction forces others to feel the weight of what they just did. They will retreat, not because you told them to, but because your stillness exposed them. In personal relationships, this matters just as much. Arguments usually grow because both sides keep reacting, feeding each other's fire. But the one who stops, who stays still, controls the tempo. Their calm makes the other person feel the heat of their own words. They realize they are shouting into quiet, and soon they burn out. Stillness breaks cycles of drama by refusing to feed them. The invisible wall is always stronger than the loud defense. Words can be twisted, emotions can be mocked, but stillness cannot be attacked. It is like trying to fight air. The harder someone swings, the weaker they look. And you, the one who refuses to move, become the unshakable presence everyone has to respect. Silence has a weight that words can never carry, because words invite debate while silence shuts it down. When you defend yourself with long explanations, you are really asking for permission to be understood, and the moment you ask, you lower yourself. But when you stay quiet, you give nothing away. You do not confirm, you do not deny, you do not justify. You let the other person sit with their own words, and that silence grows heavy on them. They start to wonder if they went too far, if they embarrassed themselves, if they revealed more than they should have. The weight is not on you, it is on them. And that is where the power shifts. People are addicted to filling silence. When you refuse to fill it, the other person almost always does. They talk more, they repeat themselves, they try harder to provoke a reaction. The more they do, the weaker they look. Their energy becomes restless while yours stays calm. In any interaction, the one who controls the rhythm controls the outcome, and silence is the strongest rhythm of all because it cannot be broken unless you decide to break it. Silence does not mean you lack answers. It means you are too strong to need to give them. Think of the people you have respected the most. They were rarely the ones who rushed to explain everything. They were the ones who could let a comment hang in the air without flinching. They could watch an insult pass by as if it never landed. That composure creates an aura of authority because people realize you will never be controlled by the opinions of others. Authority is not built on defending yourself. It is built on showing that no defense is required. In meetings, in arguments, in personal relationships, silence flips the frame. Imagine someone questions your decision in front of others. If you rush to explain, you are already reacting, you are already proving their words had weight. But if you pause, if you sit back and let the silence stretch, everyone in the room feels it. They shift uncomfortably, not because of what you said, but because of what you didn't. The challenger begins to doubt themselves. The audience begins to see you as the stronger figure, and all you did was nothing. That is the weight of silence. The hardest part is resisting the urge to fill the space. Your ego will push you to explain, to prove, to justify, to correct. But power is never in proving. Power is in control. And silence is the purest form of control because it leaves people with no grip. They cannot twist it. They cannot argue with it. They cannot use it against you. The more silent you remain, the more others expose themselves in their attempts to draw you out. The lesson is simple, but brutal. Words often weaken boundaries because they sound like pleading, but silence reinforces them because it feels like command. When you do not explain yourself, others start to question their own approach. They wonder why you are not reacting. They feel the weight of their own voice echoing, and they become smaller while you become larger. That is why silence is not emptiness. It is authority. Your eyes carry a message stronger than any speech because they reveal whether you are truly in control. People look for signals, they scan for weakness, they test for hesitation, and the first place they search is your eyes. When your gaze is restless, darting, nervous, you have already given away more than words ever could. But when your eyes remain steady, calm and unflinching, you send a signal that ends the game before it even begins. That signal is not aggression. It is not the glare of someone trying too hard to intimidate. It is the quiet certainty of someone who does not need to prove anything. A calm gaze unsettles people because it forces them to confront themselves. They expect you to fidget, to look away, to fill the silence with noise. When you do not, they start to question their own ground. It is like holding up a mirror without moving. The longer you stay still, the more they see their own insecurity reflected back at them. This is why the gaze can command a room. It does not need to shout. It does not need to argue. It only needs to remain present, steady and certain. Think about the times you have been in a room where someone spoke too much, defended too much, tried too hard. Everyone could see through it. Now think about the opposite, when someone simply looked, said little, and held their eyes steady. The room bent to them without understanding why. That is because presence flows first through the eyes. Posture matters, tone matters, but the eyes reveal what cannot be faked. If you are calm inside, your gaze will hold. If you are not, your gaze will break. People feel this on a level deeper than thought. This is why training your gaze is as important as training your words. Do not confuse it with staring contests or forced intensity. That looks desperate. True power in the eyes comes from comfort with silence, comfort with stillness, comfort with letting others feel the weight of your calm. When you can look at someone without rushing to fill the space, without breaking away too quickly, without hardening into hostility, you create the perfect balance. It is not attack, it is not retreat, it is command. In business, this shows during negotiations or leadership moments. The leader who looks down at notes constantly seems uncertain. The leader who can hold the gaze of the room with ease seems unshakable. In personal life, the same rule applies. When someone tries to provoke you and you meet them with a calm, steady look, the energy shifts instantly. They realize you are not playing on their level. They feel smaller not because you fought them, but because you refuse to flinch. Words can be twisted, silences can be misread, but the gaze is primal. Humans are wired to sense strength and weakness through eyes before anything else. A calm, unflinching gaze is a boundary in itself. It says without sound, "This is where I stand." It says without argument, "You will not move me." And when you can send that message without a single word, you end the game before it even begins. Before a single word leaves your mouth, people have already judged you by how you carry yourself. Posture is the first signal, the silent introduction that tells the world whether you invite respect or invite intrusion. Slouched shoulders say you are unsure, bent posture says you are tired. Fidgeting says you can be pushed. An upright stance says the opposite. It tells people your space is yours, your ground is firm, and you are not asking for permission to exist in it. This is not about arrogance or trying to appear larger than life. It is about the calm claim of space that communicates strength without effort. The human mind reacts to posture before it reacts to words. When someone enters a room with their shoulders back, chest open and movement steady, people notice before they even realize they are noticing. There is something magnetic about a person who holds themselves as if they belong. They do not need to shout for attention. Their presence demands it naturally. On the other hand, the one who hunches, who collapses inward, who shrinks to make themselves smaller, sends a clear signal that they are willing to give ground. And the world without malice takes what is offered. Posture is not just physical, it is psychological. When you stand upright, when you walk with deliberate calm, when you sit without folding into yourself, you send a message to your own mind as much as to others. You tell yourself, "I am steady, I am here, I do not need to rush or bend." Over time, this physical habit becomes part of your identity. You no longer have to think about it, your body does the talking for you. And the message is always the same. This space is mine. Think about times you have seen someone walk into a room and instantly command attention. It was not always because of wealth or status or even looks. It was because of how they carried themselves. Straight back, steady eyes, unhurried steps. That posture made people turn and pay attention. Now think of someone who slouched, who looked down, who folded their arms too tightly. Their presence vanished before they even had a chance to speak. The difference was not in their words, but in the signal their body sent. In high-pressure situations, posture becomes even more critical. A person who leans back calmly while others argue seems like the authority even if they never say a word. A person who leans forward nervously trying to defend themselves looks weaker even if their argument is correct. This is the brutal law of presence. The body speaks before the mouth does, and once the body has spoken, the mouth rarely changes the verdict. The truth is, you cannot fake posture for long. It reveals what you think of yourself. If you believe in your worth, it shows in how you stand and move. If you doubt yourself, that shows too. So the work is not only in holding your shoulders upright, but in training your mind to feel upright. Posture is both the reflection of self-respect and the projection of it. And when you carry yourself with quiet certainty, people know instantly that your boundaries are not to be crossed. Distance is one of the oldest languages of power, because space speaks before words ever do. You don't always need to say back off, because the way you place your body tells the story for you. A small step backward, a half pace to the side, the refusal to lean in when someone tries to close the gap, all of these gestures create an invisible line. That line is not just physical, it becomes psychological. People feel it without understanding why, and they adjust their behavior accordingly. Most people ignore the power of space because they rush to fill it. They lean in too quickly, they let others crowd them, they confuse closeness with connection. But when you guard your distance, you send a different message. You show that access to you is not automatic, that your presence cannot be crowded or consumed without permission. This is not coldness, it is strength. It teaches people to value your space because they realize it is not freely given. Think about when someone stands too close in a conversation. You feel uncomfortable, even if they have said nothing offensive. That discomfort proves how powerful distance is. Now, reverse it. When you calmly take a step back, when you widen the space between you, you are silently saying, "This is my boundary." No argument is needed, no explanation is required. The other person feels it. They will either match your movement or reveal their lack of respect by pushing further. Either way, the truth is exposed without you speaking. Distance also changes the energy of a room. Leaders who maintain space around themselves are seen as more important. A chair slightly set apart at a table, a stance that does not allow others to lean in too casually, a walk that moves at its own pace rather than being pulled into the crowd. All of these choices give off an aura of control. Space creates value because people instinctively respect what is not easily touched. In personal relationships, distance is just as important. Constant closeness can blur respect, and the person who never keeps space often ends up taken for granted. But when you hold your own space, when you do not always rush to stand shoulder to shoulder, you create balance. You show that you are complete within yourself, that you do not need to cling or crowd to prove care. Paradoxically, this makes people value your closeness more, because they know it comes by choice, not by fear of losing it. The key is subtlety. You do not shove, you do not announce, you simply move with calm intention. A half step back in conversation, a pause before letting someone into your personal circle, a refusal to let someone invade your desk, your chair, your time. These small physical actions shape how people see you. They tell the world your energy cannot be consumed without cost. Space is power because it creates tension. When you keep distance, people wonder what it means. They question whether you are above them, whether you know something they don't, whether they need to work harder for your approval. That uncertainty works in your favor. Boundaries do not always need to be spoken because distance says everything. It says access to me is earned. It says my space is mine. And the world listens without a single word. When someone crosses the line, your first instinct may be to explain, to argue, to defend yourself with detail, but that is exactly what weakens you. The moment you spill too many words, you hand them control of the frame. They wanted a reaction. They wanted proof that their move got to you. And when you deliver a speech, you confirm it. Minimal responses change the game because they deny the attacker the very thing they were after. Instead of fire, they get a wall. Instead of debate, they get finality. A short nod, a clipped noted, a calm, steady look. These end the conversation without raising your voice and without giving away your energy. Minimal responses carry weight because they cannot be twisted. Long explanations can be mocked, picked apart, or dismissed. But a single word or a steady glance is untouchable. It leaves the other person hanging in their own energy. They have to deal with the silence that follows, and most of the time they will scramble to fill it. They will talk more, try harder, even overreach, while you remain still. Every extra word they add only exposes their insecurity while your restraint grows more powerful. Think about times when someone told you simply, okay, or that he says fine, with complete calm. You probably felt unsettled. You wanted more. You wanted to know what they were really thinking. You wanted them to explain themselves. That is the power of minimal responses. They shift the weight onto the other person, making them wonder, making them doubt, making them spin in their own head. The beauty of this approach is that it protects your energy. Arguments drain you. Debates scatter your focus. But minimal responses conserve your strength while still sending a clear message. It says, I heard you, I will not fight you, and I will not be moved. It closes the door on further conflict without ever slamming it. This works in business, in friendships, in relationships. Imagine someone makes a cutting remark in a meeting. If you snap back with an explanation, the room sees tension. If you smile faintly and say, noted, before moving on, the jab dies instantly. Imagine a partner trying to bait you into drama. If you pour out justifications, the fight grows. If you calmly say, think what you like, and remain still, the storm collapses on its own. Minimal responses are not about dismissing others cruelly. They are about refusing to feed disrespect. Training yourself in this style takes discipline, because your ego will want to jump in and fight. But when you practice restraint, you discover that saying less is often saying more. A calm nod can be louder than a raised voice. A simple understood can be stronger than a page of reasons. These responses work because they do not rise to the bait. They acknowledge without submitting. They end without opening. The lesson is simple. You do not need to meet every push with a speech. The strongest boundaries are often enforced with the smallest words. A nod, a look, a brief phrase. They seem light, but they carry the full weight of self-respect. And the person who masters them learns that silence, with just a hint of response, is the most powerful language of all. People treat you the way you treat yourself, and this truth is sharper than most want to admit. If you rush to give away your time, if you bend your energy for everyone who asks, if you break your own silence out of nervousness, the world learns that you have no guardrails. They will not see it as cruelty when they take more from you. They will see it as permission. Respect is not something you ask for, it is something you project, and the projection comes from how you carry yourself long before anyone else steps into your life. When you value your time, people notice. They see it in how you pause before saying yes, in how you do not rush to fill your calendar, in how you hold still when others try to push you into their urgency. When you value your energy, people feel it. They sense that you do not argue with nonsense, that you do not waste your attention on the loudest distraction, that you do not spend your strength proving yourself. When you value your silence, people adapt to it. They learn that your calm is not emptiness, it is presence, and they begin to measure their words more carefully in your company. The aura of self-respect is not loud, it is steady, and it quietly rewrites how others interact with you. This aura forms when your inner standards and outer actions match. If you believe you deserve better but constantly allow worse, your aura is fractured and people will always test you. If you truly live as though your peace, your time, and your focus matter, then you do not need to announce it. Others feel it without you saying a word. They adjust because your energy gives them no other option. Boundaries stop being rules you explain and start being laws written in your presence. Think about the people you instinctively respect. They are not always the ones who demand it with speeches. They are the ones who move with calm certainty, who do not rush, who are not desperate to be liked. You respect them because they clearly respect themselves. They treat their time like it has weight. They guard their energy like it has value, and they do not apologize for either. That is the kind of aura that enforces boundaries without ever needing to say, this is my line. Self-respect does not mean arrogance. It does not mean you believe you are better than others. It means you believe you are not less. It means you will not trade your peace for approval. It means you will not sell your focus for scraps of validation. And when that belief is genuine, people feel it. They might not be able to explain why they hesitate before wasting your time or why they choose their words more carefully around you, but the reason is simple. Your aura has already told them what is acceptable. The mistake many people make is trying to teach others how to treat them without first teaching themselves. They think boundaries are rules they give away, when in reality, boundaries are signals they radiate. If you live with self-respect, you do not need to demand it. You draw it in naturally. People adapt to your standard. They feel it. And once they feel it, they cannot unsee it. The aura of self-respect is the strongest defense because it makes boundaries unspoken, unbreakable, and undeniable. The final evolution of boundaries is not about saying no with firmness, or even about explaining why you cannot be moved. It is about reaching the point where no one dares to test you in the first place. At this level, you do not need to argue. You do not need to defend. You do not even need to signal directly. Your very presence creates a field around you that people feel the moment they step close. They measure themselves before they speak. They adjust their tone before they ask. They pause before they demand. Your silence becomes law. Your aura becomes the unspoken rule. And your boundaries turn into something larger than a personal choice. They become legend. This level is reached only when your consistency is undeniable. People have watched you hold your ground too many times to believe you can be swayed. They have seen you refuse to chase validation, refuse to waste your energy, refuse to react when baited. Over time, the memory of your restraint shapes your reputation. You no longer need to prove you are unshakable because everyone knows you are. Even those who dislike you hesitate to test you because they know it will not go in their favor. This is the highest form of respect, born not from words, but from history. When your presence carries this weight, people begin to protect your boundaries for you. In a group, if someone makes a disrespectful remark, others step in before you have to. In a meeting, if someone tries to cut across your point, the room itself grows quiet, waiting for you to continue. In a relationship, if someone attempts to manipulate, the silence you hold forces them to reflect before you ever open your mouth. You are no longer the enforcer of your limits. The aura around you enforces them automatically. The danger of reaching this level is that people will sometimes call you distant or intimidating, but that is only because they are not used to someone who is immune to pressure. They confuse composure with coldness, when in truth, it is simply the security of someone who does not need to defend what is already theirs. You do not push people away. You simply refuse to let them pull you down. Those who can handle that strength will draw closer with deeper respect, while those who cannot will fall away on their own. The final evolution of boundaries is not about power over others. It is about mastery of yourself. You have trained your silence to carry weight, your posture to project certainty, your gaze to end debates, your distance to command space, and your minimal responses to close doors without slamming them. All of these pieces combine into an aura that needs no explanation. When you walk into a room, people feel it. When you sit in silence, people hear it. When you say nothing, people still listen. This is when boundaries stop being personal defenses and start becoming legend. Not because you shouted them, not because you fought for them, but because you lived them so completely that they became part of your presence. The highest level is not spoken, it is felt, and once you reach it, you never need to say no again. Your silence says it for you. Maybe this video helped you see yourself, or someone you know in a different way. Feel free to let us know via a like or in the comments. And if you want more wisdom and guidance in becoming a better version of yourself, subscribe now. This is the moment to start becoming the person you really want to be.